team.
Hello, this is Malorian, this is Orc Tactical Team, and I just want to start off saying that this is the third time I've had to make this video because of various technical issues, so for those who saw one of the screw-up videos, I'm sorry. Now, that aside, let's get to it, because it's new Lizardmen time! And I've been pretty excited for this book for a couple of reasons. One, I got like 5,000 points of Lizardmen, so hooray! I could try something new. And the second part kind of goes with the reason why I haven't been playing my Lizardmen, which is that they've gone kind of stagnant. I mean, here I am, a guy that's been loving playing his dwarves. And dwarves are supposed to be like, oh, they're so boring. But, you know, I found ways to make them interesting. The Lizardmen, you know, it's just, really they're like the magical gun line. You set them up at the back, you do your magic, you keep on just pumping out the spells, and you got little skinks and stuff running around the outside, but for the most part it's like, hold the line, mind magic, and that's it. Well, you know what? This has changed. Little spoiler, just to jump to the end. This has changed. So let's just kind of get to it, just to kind of say how we're going to be covering this today. I'm not going to be going through special characters. I'll be doing that in the next one. That'll be next week. For this one here, I'm going to go through the special rules, all the new magic items. Then I'll go through section by section, talking about, you know, what's going on, what do I like, what do I not like, and then at the end, bring it all together with a summary of how I think things are going to really formulate over the next little while. So let's just jump, first of all, to the special rules, which is past all the nice little fluff and stuff like that. I haven't really looked at the fluff. I assume it's still the same old thing. But first thing we got here is cold-blooded. Same as before. When you take leadership tests, take it on 3d6, drop the highest, good times. Then you get this one, Predatory Fighter. And at first when I heard this, because I try and keep the rumors away, I mean, there's a few ones I hear through podcasts and stuff, but I try not to read the rumors until I have my book. But I heard something about Predatory Fighters, and I was pretty sure that what that was before is that before you got like these extra attacks from the later rank. So, you know, if you have these spearmen and stuff, you got all these attacks when you took these lizardmen. Well, that's not it. What it is that when you have this rule, which is pretty much all your source and all your monsters, is that if you roll a 6 to hit, you get an extra attack. So it's just like this little extra little bonus. However, just like Frenzy, it has a negative. Now, you're not forced to overrun. However, if they're ever coming up to pursue, you have to chase. You can't take the test to not chase. Unless you have a skink character somewhere within like 6 inches of the unit. Which is really weird because where's the thing about the Slann? Like, I understand that, okay, like the skink priest or chief are kind of like a mini leader. But shouldn't the Slann be able to say like, don't chase them, boys. You're being an idiot. You're about to be flanked. And I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to be listing it anywhere here. So that's kind of a big change and a real big tactical difference, which is just, you know, making them more combat-y, but you got to be careful there or change your composition. Next one is Aquatic. It's just kind of making it work with 8th edition. You're also minus 1 to hit while on these things. It's really situational, right? When does this come up that you actually have a river and a place that matters and hey, they're going to put this stuff into there? It's, you know, it's nice, but it's very situational, especially in tournaments where they try and avoid rivers. Then you have your weapons all listed out, your blowpipes and your javelins. Good to have them all listed there. Nothing really crazy. Now we're going to jump ahead to the weapons and fun stuff, which I got to jump ahead a few pages. Wah! All right, let's get straight to the disciplines. This is the first little section here, and it's kind of like before, but way different because before you got one for free, and then you could just take a bunch more. Just, hey, make your guy as expensive as you want. Now you don't get one for free, and you can have up to 4, and you can't have any duplicates in the army. So that's a pretty big change, plus the actual powers themselves have changed a lot. And they're not all 50 points anymore. They're all, majority of them are less than, and let's go through them now. So first one here is Reservoir of Eldritch Energy. Basically what this is, hey, you didn't use one of your Dispel dice. On a 2+, it can be a power dice in your next phase. Nothing crazy, just, hey, a little bit of an extra boost to your magic phase if for whatever reason you don't use all your Dispel dice. So again, probably situational, but nice to have if you are still trying to go the magic route. Then you have the Soul Stone, Basically, for any of the miscast tables that you roll, you can either add 1 or -1 to result. So, helps you not get the bad ones that you're trying to avoid. And, it's not bad. It's fairly cheap. So, I can see that being one of your options. Then we go to Becoming Cognition. And that's like, oh, this was so good last book. It's changed. Now you get to re-roll the first failed spell. And that is still really nice because let's say somebody went for a crazy spell, you're about to get Dwellered or Purple Sun or whatever, so you throw all your dice, damn it, I didn't get double 6. Well, let's roll again. So it's one of these things where it can really help with those situations where you're trying to fight that big one, or what if it's a thing where it's a tiny spell, so it's like, oh, I don't want to throw too many dice, I just need to get this little average, oh, I failed, at least you can re-roll it, right? So these things, I really like this one power here. Then we have Wandering Deliberations. This one here basically makes you like the Lore Master of Hoeth. So the signature spell of every single lore, which is, we already know from the Lore Master, he can really pump out the spells because all of those signature ones are low casting. It's good to know exactly what you have going into the game. So pretty cool ability there. Then you have Harmonic Convergence. The Slann Mage Priest rolls 2 additional dice when he's trying to channel, and that's like, it's nice to get that extra couple of dice to channel, but you're still trying to get the 6s, and it's nothing guaranteed, so it's nice, but it's like, I'd rather put the points somewhere else. Then Harrowing Scrutiny, he has Terror, doesn't really matter whatsoever. Transcending Healing. Now for this one here, for every wound you have lost at the end of the magic phase, you roll a d6, and on a 6 you get a wound back. So this can be nice, but for the most part it probably won't come up because really, unless you're running like the lone Slann type of idea, the guy in the unit usually dies when the whole unit is destroyed, the temple guard, and he gets run down. So if you're doing the lone Slann thing, which we're going to be talking about in a second, maybe, but otherwise I wouldn't even bother with this. Transcending, we already talked about that one. Unfathomable Presence, this one here, you get an extra D3 magic resistance. So, really the best thing here is if you are in a meta where you are being death sniped, this on top of your 4+ ward means you don't need to worry about that anymore. Because for the majority of the time, you're going to be having a 2+ ward against all these little magical hits against you. So, you should be fine. Then we have Focus of Mystery, which is just making a lore master of that one lore. You cannot combine it with the other ones. So you can't be like, I know all signature spells and I know everything. So it actually specifically says you can't combine those two. But again, I'm sure this will be a popular one for people that just want to know, like, know what, 4 isn't enough. I just need to know the whole lore so I don't get screwed over, right? And then you have Higher State of Consciousness. This one is fairly expensive, and what it does, it makes you ethereal. Pretty good. However, you're also unstable, and that's a big deal because, in other times it's like, okay, well, there's a whole nice trick where you run out, it's like, okay, Steam Tank, you're going nowhere. Okay, Monster, you're not going anywhere. The bad thing here, though, of course, is that now you can actually crumble. So as before, it's like, okay, you charge me with this unit, I lose by a few. You know what, I'm still cold-blooded, leadership 9 or 10 if I took the Banner of Discipline. No big. I'll just hold, I'll be all right. No, now you're going to crumble. So this is the one where I say, if you're doing this, you might want to combine this with the healing one as well. But overall, if you're probably in that spot there where you're losing lots of wounds, getting a couple back on a 6 probably won't save you too much. But hey, it's an option and it's something you can do. Looking at my favorites here, my favorite would be the re-rolling for the first failed Dispel account, the Lore Master, and like the Lore Master Hoeth thing. Those 3, I think, are the ones you're going to really see. Alright, now here's your magic weapons. People were worried because after the High Elf book, there was like 3 pages. Well, this one's still just 2 pages, so don't worry. It's not like we're starting at these big lists again. And let's just go through them. First, we have the big item here, the Blade of Realities, where you get no armor, no ward saves. So, it can be kind of nice if you're up against something that, you just want to kill. Your characters already have lots of attacks, and just know, like, you know what? You're not getting any saves. You might have a regen, there's still that going on, but otherwise, you're gone. Or it's the thing like, okay, you're set up. You have one of these guys that has the 3+ ward save. No, you don't. So that's pretty cool, but it's really expensive too. It's going to be your full allotment. Then you have the Piranha Blade. You're basically doing D3 wounds, and you have Armor Pierce. So this is really nice if you want to hunt characters or hunt monsters. It's a pretty good buy for that. Then you have one that I like, which is the Sacred Stegodon Helm, which before was like a skink only thing, and I had like the old skink priest that actually had like a Stegodon hat, but now it's for anyone. And what it really does is it gives you 1 better armor, plus 1 toughness, and also gives you D3 impact hits. The D3 impact hits is cute. The main thing is going to be the toughness, where you throw this on your source type characters, and also on their toughness 6, and that's a pretty big deal. Now, here's one that I really think is crazy, which is the Skaven Pelt banner. I almost just like skipped this one because I thought like, oh yeah, it'll be some like cutesy Skaven-y type thing. And that's part of it, but you know, you get hatred against Skaven and they get hatred against you, so okay, oh cute, whatever. But the other thing is you give the unit Frenzy. And so, you know, it is expensive enough that this is pretty much going to be either, it has to be on a BSB or on your Slann, which pretty much means it's going to be going to the Temple Guard, but man, giving all these guys an extra attack is pretty huge. And I mean, one of the things you gotta look at too is that, okay, sure, Frenzy also is bad and it forces you to do all these things. Well, you know what? You're already preparing your list for predatory fighters. So if you're already preparing to help counter that, you already have everything in your list to stop the baits for Frenzy as well. And one of the bad things of Frenzy is like, oh, I'm being forced to charge. With that high leadership, it's not gonna happen. And cold-blooded. Then you have the Jaguar Standard, which is just another way to get the Swift Stride rule. Cube of Darkness, which is you basically stop the spell on a 2+, so basically dispel a scroll. And then every single different remains in play, you roll a d6 for those as well. And on 2+, those also go away. So the big thing here is that basically this is a second dispel scroll, and it's also for that one situational time that, okay, I need to stop this, any of this other remains in play out, so all right, I'll stop that. And you can also use it to your advantage, knowing like, let's say you are going against the Life Slann, and he goes and he puts up Throne of Vines, and you're like, okay, take it. Then he's gonna go and try and super dwellers it. Doesn't get irresistible force, all right, Cube of Darkness, that's gone, and your Throne of Vines is gone. And that's pretty cool. Plague of Dominion. This one here is a bound spell, which says, makes all enemy wizards within 18 stupid. Cute, not so tactically useful, unless you have like this nice situation going on. Normally that doesn't matter, but hey, sometimes it'll help you. It's just, the points are gonna go somewhere else. And it's an arcane, so it's like, I could take this, or a Dispel Scroll, and you know which one's going to be taken. Cloak of Feathers, this one's just for your skink. Lets them fly around, and also magic resistance 1. And I think especially now where you want your characters, your skink ones, to be being in positions to stop that predatory fighters when you need to, that could be very helpful. Not just for avoiding being killed and stuff, but being where you need to, just keep your guys in line. Then you have the Horn of Kygor, which is a 1-use only and basically just gives Frenzy to all your monster stuff. So whether it's the monstrous beasts or monsters, Frenzy for everyone for this turn. And so that's kind of nice, the +1 attack. Then again, you're being forced to overrun and all these things. So I'm not really a fan of that one, but you know, whatever. If you are going monster crazy, you need that one good turn, maybe. Then you have this Egg of Guano, Quango, whatever. The main thing is you use this at the start of a combat phase, 1-use only. It's kind of like a random breath weapon, where either it can do anything from D6 strength 3 hits, D6 strength 4, or 2D6 strength 5, which would be awesome. You get that last one half the time, but it's random. It's a good amount of points. It's, you know, I can see it being used, and I wouldn't call anyone stupid for using it, but it's also not, you know, a 1+ item. So looking at this, the big winners to me are going to be the Skaven Pelt banner. I can see the Piranha Blade getting a lot of use. Cube of Darkness, that's the #1 best one I see here. And then apart from that, it's just, you know, maybe Blade of Reality sometimes, but it's so expensive. And then of course, I mean, there's nothing here that's just like completely stupid. I'd say the worst one is probably that Horn, where it's, So there's that. Now we're going to go to the Slann. We're going to go to our Lords, and again, I'm not doing special characters, but that basically says that there's going to be the Slann and the Old Blood. Now, for the Slann, it itself has a couple of two little silly new rules. First of all, it has something so that, you know all those times you're going down that scree slope and you're like, oh man, I just failed my dangerous terrain test. Well, now the Palanquin lets you re-roll failed spell dangerous terrain tests. So yeah, that's a big deal. I don't know why they did that. But anyway, it's there. I'm not going to argue against an extra buff. The other thing here too is that if you basically have 2 Slann or multiple, you at the start of the magic phase can decide to switch spells. And again, it's like situational. It's interesting. I can see where sometimes it's going to really help, but most of the time you're probably not going to run double Slann anyway. Probably only is going to come into larger games, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Now, the big thing with the Slann, first of all, like when I was going through all of their different abilities and all that stuff, there's no more rumination. There's no more extra spell. I'm sure it's on one of the special characters. It's not normally. So that's a big hit. There's also no more becalming, so taking away the 6s from the enemy caster. So all of a sudden things like, Pit of Shades is, again, very dangerous because they can be irresistible force and you can't stop it. You're not stopping those 6s anymore. So with that happening, it's a really big change. Another thing, too, is they now get a chance to go after any of the 8 lores like before, or they have their own special lore. And for me, I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. What spells is it? It's the High Elf lore. So it's like, okay, well, the High Elf lore is pretty cool. Has some stuff in it. Yeah, okay. The thing is the attribute changed. And what you do here is after you cast a spell, you can choose to forget it. And then at the end of the phase, you then can go and re-roll on one of the other lores you have access to. Now, this can probably be used for 2 separate things. The first one is where it's like, man, this spell I rolled is garbage. I need to change it up. So first turn before it really matters, I'll cast the spell, forget it, and get something so that later in the game it actually matters. And of course, you're probably going to go for things like on the Lore Beast where you want Wild Form or something like that. Or you can just say like, Lore Death is cool, Sig's good, a lot of the other things are good, let's roll on that one. But it'll be more of a thing where it covers your butt from your useless spells. The other thing is when you get done using the situational spells. So let's say you use the Arcane Unforging. You go and you cast that, you destroy the one magic weapon they had, and it's like, all right, this is now a pointless spell other than kind of like a character snipe type thing. Well, I'll just forget this, and if I'm going to snipe characters, let's take Spirit Least, right? We'll go for that instead. For those who don't know the High Elf book, what this is a double signature spell thing where you have Drain Magic, where you're either, getting rid of buffs and stuff like that. It goes Augment or Hex, so that's pretty cool. You can either stop the hexes on you or you can stop the augments on them. They have Soul Quench, which is kind of like a super fireball. Apotheosis, which is getting wounds back, which is always good. Hand of Glory, which is improving your weapon skill, initiative, and all that stuff. Walk Between Worlds, which is, making you ethereal and speeding you around the board. Tempest, which is kind of like a weird template, go around, damage things spell. Arcane Unforging, which is destroying magical items and then doing a wound based of like the Lore of Metal. You just do it off their armor save. And then Fiery Convocation, which is a cool one, which kind of like hits everyone in the unit. If you want more detail of this, you've probably seen in my High Elf. I'm not going to go into too much detail here on the lore that's a repeat. And again, I am kind of disappointed that it is a repeat lore. I can understand the idea behind it, like the fluff, like, hey, these guys are like the ancient magic, and this is like the ancient magic, so it's the same between the two. But I still want to be different, man. Come on, something. So there you go. That's really the Slann. Of course, you give me the BSB like before. All that fun stuff. Nothing really changes there. But then, of course, there's also the Old Blood. For the most part, Old Blood, nothing new. Same basic stat line. The big thing here, of course, is the Carnosaur change. Well, I might as well talk about this now, where the Carnosaur is there, and he now can take upgrades. He can take an upgrade where you are now making the opponent roll an extra dice for a Fear and Terror test, and they drop the lowest. So what this really lets you do is like a Fear and Terror bomb, where it's like, okay, that unit on the flank, charge you, take that test with the, the extra dice, drop the lowest. You may be outside of general BSB range as well. And so while he's moving himself up into position on the flank, he's also knocking away these other guys here, these other units, kind of for free. So that's kind of cool. If you're up against Immune to Psych, it's useless. But another thing here, too, is we're going to get into it that I don't think you need a Slann. And a lot of times, it's kind of silly. The Old Blood, Leadership 8. The Scarvet. Oh, it's Leadership 8. Your basic Saurus, Leadership 8. So, unless you're mixing in skinks, the leadership isn't that crazy. And really, a lot of times the skinks do their work on the flanks. So, hey, having your general on the flank anyway can work. So, all of a sudden, I can see this whole thing being viable. But at the same time, if the character is just there to be a way to get in a Carnosaur and having a leadership 8 general, well, let's move on to the Scarvet, which is basically the same thing. He got a little bit cheaper. He's still pretty damn awesome for a hero, but he also has access to the Carnosaur. So, I mean, if you're trying to save a good 60 points, well, go with the Scarvet. You know, you don't really need to put anything on him other than, you know, the typical armor and a charm shield or something, and then yeah, just go get them on the flank, right, type thing. And I could see that being fairly viable. Of course, you also have the thing for the whole monster mash. We're going to have Carnosaur lords and Carnosaur heroes, and we're going to be talking about that more later, but it's kind of interesting to have that ability to do that. You have the Skink Chief here. He's basically the same, except for how you can get the Ripterdactyl, which we'll be talking about when we get to that section. We also now have the Skink Priest. Now, this changed in 2 ways. One, he can become a level 2 now, and the other thing is he can also take Lore Beasts. And so Heavens or Beasts, and as soon as I saw that, it's all about the wild form spam. And it's like doing Beastman type stuff, where it's like, okay, Gore in the front, the whole Covenant in the back, wild form, except you have a better start because Saurus are just better than Gore. So, man, I mean, Saurus are pretty cool at toughness 4, strength 4, and a couple attacks and a solid armor save. You make that strength and toughness 5, they're monsters. And especially now they have Predatory Fighter, they could have Frenzy as well. These guys can rip stuff up. So I can definitely see this being very viable. And using these guys for your magic, right? I can totally see saying no Slann and going 3 these guys or something. But I'm going to talk about overall builds at the very end. So that's your heroes. Everything's pretty much there. Only loser, if there's a loser, would be, you know, like the Skink Chief. Where it's again just, I mean, it's a way of getting another Stegodon into your hero section. So if you're trying to max out those types of monsters rather than Carnosaurs, that's there. But hey, we don't have the War Spear anymore, so that use is gone. But, hey, it's something. Let's get on to core. Alright. Saurus. Haven't really changed. They're still Saurus. The only thing to talk about here is a free spear. So before, I mean, these used to pay extra points to get the spear. Now it's the same. So do you want a hand weapon shield or a spear and shield? Same points. So it really comes down to, do you want to have a 6+ parry or an extra attack when you don't charge? And to me, especially now that it seems like Saurus are more not a defensive unit, they're more of an offensive unit, I go with the spears. Now true, when you charge, you won't get those attacks, but if it's a grind type situation, getting those extra attacks will be a big deal. And really the parries, it's like, it's nice, but it's just a 6+, and you know, there's ways around it if you hit on the flank and stuff like that. It's not that big of a deal. So I think I'll go with spears, unless it's like a little bunker of 10. That's probably it. Then we have regular skinks, the ranked up ones, the skink cohorts. 2 things to talk about them here. Sorry, my nose is just running. First one is I think the Skrok unit is dead. They have the same rule where for every 8 skinks, you can put in a Kroxigor. Now, unless I missed this in the FAQ before, you cannot attack the Kroxigor. Now, if you're touching a skink that's touching a Kroxigor, you can attack the Kroxigor. So normally what happened before is you go in the unit, you might kill a bunch of skinks, but the Kroxigors are kicking your butt. Now, if I can go into that unit and just kill the Kroxigor, the unit's a big waste. They can be upgraded to take poison attacks. I wouldn't bother with this. I mean, it really jumps up in their price. There's other ways to get poison attacks. I mean, it's neat, but I wouldn't bother. I mean, if you're up against a lot of monsters with low armor and high toughness, like if you play a lot of Tomb Kings, okay, maybe, but why are you charging in and hoping for poison attacks instead of just running circles and, you know, javeling and all that stuff for poison? So, next one here is the Skink Skirmishers. Nothing really changed here except, again, the upgrade is free. So whether you want to go Blowpipe or Javelin and Shield, it's all the same. Personally, my preference is with the Javelin and Shield because you get an extra armor save, you get the parry in combat. And the other thing is, too, is that I like that I'm always hitting on the 4s. It seems a lot of times the blowpipes are good when you get into a position where you can just sit there and shoot. But when you're moving up the flanks, you know, running and shooting, a lot of times you're taking so many minuses that you can't even double tap with these guys, or else you're going to 7s. Whereas the javelins, you're always just run as much as you want. You're always needing 4s, and I mean the 6s are still poisons, and then the 4/5s you can still roll the wound. So I'd rather have those, but everyone will have their preferences. And I mean, it would be nice to get a new core or something like this. It's been the same for a while, but hey, it's all right. Okay, we are now in a special. We got 3 pages of it. First thing is a Temple Guard. Temple Guard are pretty much the same. The big things here are, well, I mean, they have Predatory Fighter, so it's kind of hard to guard the Slann when you can be pulled out of formation. And to kind of explain what's going on with this is what you would do, it's almost like when you're baiting out a frenzy. You just move up a unit to them and you turn them to the side. Now, for this, you're going to make sure the unit's big enough that they can't just wipe it out. Because if they wipe it out, they're good. But if you set them up so there'll be at least one guy left till break, you put them in a situation where it's like, okay, you can either sit there and I shoot you, or you can charge and I'll flank you. Totally up to you. So that for Temple Guard is not a good thing to have. One thing that they do have new is that the Lookout Sir is automatically passed. So that's nice. I mean, really, it's again like very low impact, but for the time it comes up, it'll be like, hey, that's awesome. But just remember it's there. Another thing that's nice too, they also clarified how the bolt throwers work for these guys and for the Scrox unit, so make sure you go through that and read that. Then we get to an interesting one, which is the Jungle Swarm. And these Jungle Swarms, I'm trying to see where mine is here so I can show it off, but they have not been seeing a lot of use because they're kind of garbage. But now, it's kind of like just how like Bat Swarms, where Bat Swarms are also garbage, but they gave it an extra rule to make it more tempting, where you kind of do like kind of a synergy thing working together. And what they did here is, first of all, you have to take at least 2 of them, so that's going to make them more expensive overall as a unit. However, whenever they're fighting an enemy, anyone who's fighting that target gets poison attacks. So you have to be really careful with this because it sounds really good, but it's not as easy as you think. Your first thing is like, okay, that's great. Saurus swarms attack, get poison attacks, kick their butt, right? Saurus are already awesome. If they have poison attacks, it's even better. Now, the issue is if you charge them both at the same time, you need to make room for both units. You're going to have Saurus guys that aren't attacking, and then all the extra wounds that you're doing because of poison is probably being counteracted completely, if not even more so, by wounds being done to the swarm. So that's not going to be the way you need to do it. It's going to have to be a thing where like the swarms are on the flank and then are going to be flanking while the Saurus come in the front, because all of a sudden then you're not taking any Saurus out of the equation. There'll be less attacks on the jungle swarms themselves, and then that can work. It's a thing where it's like, okay, it will take a lot of work to make this thing be pulled off, but you know, I wouldn't blame someone for taking it, and I wouldn't blame someone for not taking it. It's just an interesting thing you can do. Then you have Chameleon Skinks, pretty much the same as before. Then you have the Cold One Riders. And the big difference here is the whole idea where now the Cold One all of a sudden got an extra attack. I mean, always the Riders have been a little bit better where they have, you know, weapon skill 4, a better initiative than regular Saurus. But also on these Cold Ones, they got another attack here now. And so these guys turn out to be pretty good and grindy. It's a whole thing too where you don't need to give them spears anymore. That's an option. But you can basically take these guys, and I think the real purpose for them, especially in an age full of war machines and, you know, metal, lore metal stuff, is that you're probably going to use them like I use my Boar Boys, where they're basically your heavy fast cap. So on the flanks, you already have your skinks that can run around and shoot things, but what if you just, you know, you need to kill them with combat? Well, these guys can charge into those flank units, clear them out, and always reform to go into the fronts when needed. Or if you're facing, say, like some sort of tar pit unit, right? There's a big unit of slaves, and I don't want to have to dedicate my big unit of Saurus to 4 rounds of combat to try and beat it. Saurus Cav, go get them. Just hold them up there forever. And they generate so many kills that they're going to be winning combat. They might lose a few, you know, with lucky rolls or something, but overall, they're just going to just tar pit the tar pit type thing. And meanwhile, hey, maybe there's an engineer in there. We can kill off the engineer. So again, they're not a great choice. You're not going to see them all the time. You'll see them the odd time, and I think it works. They'll be okay. All right, next thing here is the Kroxigor. Now, the Kroxigor are strength 7, great weapons. You know, that's pretty nice. It was kind of stupid for a while when they went back down to strength 4, and so there's strength 6 overall. But strength 7, looking pretty respectable. Of course, in an age of 1+ saves and all these things, I could definitely see their inclusion as well. Say like a unit of 3, move up a unit of skinks, redirect those skull crushers, flank them with the Kroxigor, and beat them down. I can totally see that. In one of my previous videos, I giggled for like 10 minutes from talking about the whole idea of taking like a horde of Kroxigor. And the thing is, at the end of the day, they're still toughness 4 with a 4+ save. They're not trolls with a 4+ regen. They're way more expensive than trolls, but you know, taking them in a larger unit could be okay if you have the buffs there. Saying again, like with the 3 skinks, with all the wild form, make that, you know, toughness 5. It's more respectable, but at the same time, if you're going to make these big point units, you know, why not just do that with Saurus? I don't know, I say the best way to run these guys is a unit of 3 trying to go for the flank. It's all kind of like the same idea that you'd be doing with the Dragon Ogres, but of course, not everybody uses those, so, yeah. Pterodon Riders. Pterodon Riders pretty much fulfill the same role. Skinks in general have gone down in leadership, and that's an issue, because they used to be leadership 5, and that means that, hey, if you're away from the general, you better watch out, because cold-blooded or not, leadership 5 sucks. However, they still drop rocks, so they can go around, and in an age here now where there's predatory fighters, and you have to just wipe out chaff. If there's chaff, kill it off. These guys are good. They also have these new, like, flaming leech boas, what's it called? Fire leech bolas for 1 point a model. So pretty trivial given how many points there are already. And what that does is changes their javelin with these little flaming attack things that are strength 4. And personally, I really like this option. First of all, it looks cool, but the real thing here is that, okay, it's not a thrown weapon, so you're probably going to hit on a 5 rather than the 4+. But then again, it's going to be easier to wound. And the main idea here is if you're ever up against something with regen, well, of course, these guys go in there. They might drop rocks on one chaff. Let's say it's my orcs and goblins. Drop rocks on the wolves, wipe them out. Go to the flank of the trolls. One bola guy gets 1 wound in, boom, they lose regen. Everything else shoots into the unit and, you know, decimates them type thing. So that'd be the idea there. I think it really is worth the 1 point. If you don't have the 3-4 points to spare, sure, don't bother with it. But I think overall, if you do, sneak that one in. Stegodon, cheaper, pretty much the same idea. The biggest difference here is the whole idea where it has upgrades as well. I mean, it has like the devastating charge, which is like, but also has these sharpened horns, which gives it D3 wounds for each of the impact hits it does. And you know what? I can see that, because already Stegodons tend to be like in a defensive role, and in an age again of lots of monsters and monstrous cav, you know what? Making these guys do D3 wounds with these impact hits, that's pretty damn solid. So I could definitely see use from that upgrade. Again, if you don't take it, I'm not going to call you an idiot, but you know, not bad overall. I mean, you lost points anyway, so when you put that in there, now you're the same points, so win-win, right? Then we get to something new, and this is a Bastiodon. Now, when I first saw this guy, he's the big armored tank guy. He had like a crazy gem on his back, and there's another one that's like spewing out snakes. Like, this is going to be cool. And it was really disappointing. Basically, getting to it, the gem, you know how we talked about the egg and the random hits it can do? Pretty much take that same table, except that's a magic missile, that's a bound spell. So it's like, oh, that's pretty weak. It's a free, it's the same points no matter which version you go. And then for the snake one, if you're around snake swarms, you can increase their size by 1 base. And as well, every enemy unit within D6 gets like these crappy little snake attacks. And it's just so weak, you know, that effect. And also the monster itself. Now, it does have a 2+ save, and that's pretty damn awesome. You know, that's nice. The problem is that, again, it's only toughness 5. All of these monsters, only toughness 5, 4 wounds, and then it's only strength 4 with 3 attacks. So when it attacks, it's going to be doing very little. Its Thunder Stomp is at strength 4. So man, this thing's going to have to go up against garbage stuff to be winning. It does have a thing where it doesn't care if you're on its flank or its rear, and its tail attack is strength 10, and if you are in the rear, it gets +1 to hit you, but again, it's just not enough, man. It is very cheap. That's one of the things I can give it, is that it's not a lot of points. So, okay, it could be a thing where if you're running Monster Mash, you're like, you know what, I got these Empire Swordsmen coming at me. I need to bog them down. I don't want to go and dedicate my Carnosaurs because they have a better target to go after. Okay, send in the Bastiodons. They'll go in there, strength 4 is enough, and they'll hold down that unit. So in that case, you know, as kind of like a throwaway monster, that's not bad, but I was really hoping for something else. But what are you going to do, right? Now we get to the Ripterdactyls. Now these guys are 5 more points than your regular Pterodons, and the big deal here, that's the difference, is they have another attack, they have the Killing Blow, they have Armor Piercing, and they also have Frenzy. Now, so that makes them kind of crazy, but we'll talk about this in a second. You also have this Toad Rage, where basically you pick one target, which is kind of like their prey target, and when you attack them, your Frenzy turns into D3 +1. So that basically gives them 5 attacks each, which is pretty serious. Now, tactically speaking, what these guys are going to be doing is charging around and clearing out chaff. But they also have the added benefit that, hey, while they're doing this and killing the crap, they can be having the Toad on like a small unit of knights and say, all right, when we set up for a flank and we go in there, all those strength 4 armor piercings and killing blows are going to devastate them and will beat them. Now, the real problem here, though, is that the fact that they have Frenzy, and that, of course, they're going to be working on the flanks. They're also not dropping rocks, so they have to do it through combat. But, you know, if they're not near the general, they're just going to be charging off into spots you don't want them. So where I think they'll be nice is if you are doing like the Carnosaur thing on the flank, and that's where your general is, all right, well, that's great. These Ripterdactyls will be with you. He's clearing the chaff away from your Carnosaur, and you're making sure they're not just being stupid and frenzy charging into whatever they want. So that's not bad. You know, it's pretty cool. But overall, you're going to have to watch out for it. And that's all the specials, and it's a good amount. One new unit there, which is cool. The jungle swarms have been changed. If I look through this and I was to think what's going to be the real winners that you're going to see all the time, you know, for those who still like the Slann, the Temple Guard, you know, I can really see this idea of like a big Temple Guard unit with Frenzy, with all this other stuff. But the other thing is, of course, Chameleon Skinks. You're always going to see them. Cold One Riders and Jungle Swarms, they'll be kind of two flavor. But, you know, the Bastiodons, you're going to be seeing these guys who like the Monster Mash. Pterodons, I think, are another good choice. So really, my 3 top choices would be the Temple Guard, Chameleon Skinks, and the Pterodon Riders. But hey, I mean, everything else has its place. And like I said, for its points, the Bastiodon isn't bad, but man, you know, I just watch Pacific Rim. I want monsters to be badass, and Strength 4 just doesn't cut it. All right, now we're on to rares, and we start off with an interesting one, which is the Ancient Stegodon. And the reason why this is interesting is because this is where you have the option to upgrade to the Engine of the Gods. So first of all, this isn't coming out of your hero section. This is going to come out of your rare. So again, when you're working out your Monster Mash things, it's like I can have a Carnosaur Lord, Carnosaur Scarvets, you know, you have Bastiodon specials, and then in here you're going to have the Stegodons and your Troglodon guy, right? So it really makes it so you can get lots of monsters in there. However, the Engine of the Gods is garbage because, first of all, the guy on there now is just, you know, like some skink crew guy, and it's going to be a chief that's going to be running the Engine of the Gods. The big thing here is that its abilities got worse as well. Took a little nerf there. So when you go and you do like the little shield, it's not a 5+ ward, it's a 6+ ward. When you do your laser beams, it's not ignoring armor saves anymore. So it really got weak. It's not many more points, but to be fair, I'd rather just have the giant blowpipes. You know, those are good enough. I don't need that upgrade whatsoever. So I got 2 Engine of the Gods right here. and I'm probably never going to use them, other than, you know, if I'm trying to mash in the monsters, okay, whatever. Then we'll get to the Salamander pack. Now, these guys have gone up 5 points, which is, it's something. Their breath weapon still is a breath weapon, but it's not the big minus to your armor save. It's just strength 4. So it's not like you're doing it over knights and making them lose all their armor anymore. But the other thing that's cool is that it's not 1 to 3, it's 1+. Not a big deal here, because I don't think you're going to be taking like 6 of these guys in a pack. I do 2 at most, but it's a change, it's a change. I'd say overall the 5-point difference is not enough to actually make you change your list, but for the most part, it's just different, and personally I like the change. I think the strength 4 is better than like the strength 3 -3 armor save or whatever it was before, so I like that change. Then we go to the Razordons, and these guys got cheaper by 10 points, and the other thing they did here is that now whenever you're getting charged, yes, you have to still use the stand and shoot thing, but instead of doing 2 of the artillery dice, you get to re-roll it, and that's really nice, because not only if you roll a 2, you can re-roll and hope to get something higher, but if you get a misfire, you can re-roll that. So that's pretty damn nice. And I think it's with these Razordons that the 1+ really helps. Because you know what? I liked running a unit of 3 of these guys because they'd be going around shooting off, clearing chaff, and they could charge in as well. And so especially when you're stacking on this stuff here, I can see a unit of 4 or even 5 of these guys working as a team, really just like, okay, what do you got over here? Pistoliers, gone, right? All right, is it time to charge in the flank? Bam, this is a lot of strength 5 attacks, yeah. So, you know, these guys are serious business. And really what they fall into is like, normally if you're trying to clear out the flanks, you got your skinks. They're going to run around, shoot, but they get into combat, they're screwed. Then you have the guys I said with the Saurus cap, where they can just charge through and clear out the flanks, but they're not going to be doing it through shooting, it's through combat. These guys here, they're like in that middle ground where they're shooting and can do the combat. So, you know what? I don't see the Razordons as a write-off. I'm sure they won't be popular, but I think there's some serious possibilities here. Then we have the Troglodyte. Now, this guy, again, isn't that many points, but he is a little bit disappointing because, again, I was hoping for kick-ass monsters. But basically what he does is that you have an upgrade. We can make it so the guy on it can channel. And the other thing here, too, is that he has this big roar. So he has, okay, first of all, he's a shooting attack, which is, you know, like strength 5 does D3 wounds. So, okay, if you're spitting at other monsters or something. But the big thing here is that once per game, he can do a roar, and all your friendly units within a foot with that predatory fighter, instead of just getting the extra attack on a 6, it's on a 5 or a 6. So for that one big turn when you're charging in, you pull that off, and bam. Now, the other person that would be doing this type of idea would be like a Stegodon, right? You got your 2 Saurus blocks, Stegodon in the middle, trying to work it out, and then they're trying to charge together, right? So doing impact hits and all the damage from the Stegodon, and then you're taking away steadfast from the actual unit. This guy will be pretty much doing those extra wounds, instead of impact hits, doing it through predatory fighter. So it's, you know, it's something that's okay. I mean, if you are doing the monster mash, this will also kind of help you out because of how the monsters also have that rule. The predatory fighter, or is it just, oh, it's on the Stegodon. I know it was on one of the monsters. Ooh, is Malorian a big liar? Maybe it was just on the Scarvet. Alright, never mind that. It's not on the monsters. So it's really just helping out the guys, and I think if nothing else, you're going to see this just because it's another monster in the list, and it looks different and cool and big. But tactically helping you wise, again, just like strength 5, toughness 5, at least it's not strength 4, but only a 4+ save. And I mean, in a type of meta where there's so many war machines and so many strength 5, these guys are going to be in a lot of trouble, right? There's such a big difference between the toughness 5 and the toughness 6. And I mean, in the end of the day, even things like the, man, all these little Dawn names, Baslodon, with a 2+ armor, I can't still going to take that away anyway. So either way, you know, that's kind of the thoughts on that there. The rare section, the winner is probably going to be the Salamanders. You just need these guys because, I mean, skinks are good at like pew-pew-pewing and bring down the numbers. But if you have a big block of infantry, this is the big tactical difference where this guy is going to be just destroying this stuff. And then the big loser for the section would be the Engine of the Gods. And that's really the list. So now my kind of thoughts of how the list will be overall. First of all, there'll be the whole idea of what are you going to do with your magic? Because the Slann's kind of cool, right? He's still a level 4, but he's not like he was before. And I mean, like, the whole idea of the double Slann, I think is dead. I think it's absolutely dead, because now that you don't have rumination, you're just not power dice efficient enough to run 2 Slann. So one's going to be a maximum, and I don't think you even need that one, because a lot of times when you take the one, it's not just him, it's all the points that go into the temple guard, and unless you're like me and you hoard them up, you're almost hiding them from combat a lot of the time. So I really think you can drop the Slann, go with the 3 skinks, have them in a bunker in the back, and just going crazy with the wild form. You probably want at least 1 skink anyway to stop the whole predatory fighter when you need it. And so I think maybe even if you go with a Slann, you're going to take a Slann and 1 skink priest. Now, normally I'm not a big fan of running the support mages. However, now in this where you just need that skink priest to stop the whole predatory thing, that's a big bonus. And plus you're in an army which basically has 2 dispel scrolls, and you might as well take advantage of that. So I can definitely see that being a good build. Of course, you're going to be basing your own swords with spears, and this really just going to be a mix of a whole bunch of stuff, right? Whatever flavor you like. And that's what I really like about this book, is that it's not like, you know, like this is the smart thing to do. Like for rare, it has to be solid metal, it has to be this. I mean, I'm sure you're still going to be seeing those the majority of the time, but really the whole mix of the rest of it, what support elements you go with, whether it's the pterodons or ripperdactyls, what monsters, you really can mix in a lot of things and still be very competitive. And I mean, especially in an army where you can just buff things up and you have all these access to a lot of different lores, you can do a lot of different things. So I'm really excited about that. But of course, the one thing you're going to see is the monster mash. Because in this list here, this book, you can get so many monsters. You're going to have your, you know, your 1 Carnosaur Lord. You're going to have maybe a double Carnosaur heroes, probably just 1 depending on how you do it, and the point size. Then you're going to have, you know, like triple Stegodon, triple Basilodon for your specials, and then you're going to have in those Troglodons into your rare. So you can see a lot of monsters, but at the same time, this isn't like the you know, Monster Mash from the Tomb Kings, where it's a bunch of toughness 8 stuff. This isn't like the High Elf one where we're flying and picking our fights. These guys are all on the ground. You can redirect them. And you can also make sure that, man, in combat, they're just not crazy enough, right? You're not like the Frost Phoenix, which is, you know, strength or toughness 6, and you're -1 strength and all this stuff, right? These guys are a lot weaker. So there is that going to it. The one thing you do have to counteract that is the magic and the idea that you can get a lot of different lore life things in there. I mean, what you can do for the most part is run like your lore life, and right there, I mean, you're just healing up all the guys around you. That would be forcing you to keep all your monsters together, but you're probably doing that with the Lizardmen Army anyway. And then you can always mix, right? You could be taking it so that you have your Slann going for high magic, go with that 1 Apotheosis for the heal, and then as you're casting your other spells situationally, changing those out for lore life spells. And then, of course, by that time, when you're really getting to the combat, this is where you're going to be casting those and healing them up. So I can see it working. It's just that, you know, in a world of so much war machines and stuff, it almost seems like it's the wrong time. And man, it's just that strength 4 on the Basilodon. Killer. But what can you do? I mean, you don't want all monsters to be super crazy, so, you know, hats off to GW for that. But either way, you know, talking about this book as a whole, I love it. I think it's a very balanced book. I can't see anything in here is like, that's broken. You know, there's nothing like that. All the items are good. All the abilities are good. There's very few units in here that you're going to completely write off. Everything really has some tactical function. I mean, there's the Engine of the Gods. That's the one thing that I have the very least respect for. Everything else, I would not blame you for taking anything else in the list. So, very cool book. Hope you like it. Will I be getting some games in? Of course. Right away? I don't know. But I'll be covering that with my hobby update. And until then, thanks for watching. And next week, I'll be doing the one of the special characters. So, if there's any questions you have on those special characters or on anything else, just put it down below. I know one controversial thing that's going on right now is the predatory fighter rule, because in the book it says from your supporting attacks you get 1 attack from no matter what rules you have. So normally Army Book trumps rule book. So even though this says you get extra attacks, that should override, but then the Army Book or rule book also says that you only get 1 no matter what other bonuses you have, other rules. So it's one of these always never things. It really is probably going to come down to an FAQ, but I believe the way it's going to be ending up. Oh no, I just noticed my guy's like broken. Oh, anyway. This is just looking over at my slag from Mazda Mondi, who is very sad, by the way. But we'll be getting back to that next week. But the big thing there is I can probably see it staying so that everybody's going to get the predatory fighter, just because it's not going to be worth your time having to always remember to roll the different ranks separately. You know, the difference is very minor, and you know what, just do it. Just roll the dice for everyone. If you get any 6s, hooray, you get an extra attack. But we'll see what GW says. I mean, I can see arguments for this one either way. And hey, if you have any other controversial questions or other things, like I say, put it down below, and I'll cover that next week. Bye.